to NURFM.com, a broadcast service of the University of Newcastle.
And it's been a highly successful all this year. It's the University of Newcastle's new Professors Talk series. The next one is being held at Newcastle Museum tomorrow night, 6:15 for a 6:30 start, the public lecture. And it will feature Professor Geoff Whitty. Professor Geoff Whitty, CBE, holds a Global Innovation Chair at the University of Newcastle, where he's attached to the new Centre of Excellence for Equity in Higher Education. And we're looking at his career as we welcome him to the studio this morning. You had a similar role for around 10 years, University of London, is that correct?
Well, a slightly different role. I was the director of the Institute of Education, which is one of the colleges of the University of London, specialising in the study of education and related areas of social science and professional practice. So it was a big job. It's the equivalent of a Vice-Chancellor's job, really.
Tell us a little bit more about your time at the University of London.
Well, it depends which time you mean. I graduated as an undergraduate from Cambridge and then went to the Institute of Education, University of London, to train as a secondary school teacher, which I did. And then I did some secondary school teaching. Then I went back and did a higher degree at the same place. And then many years later, I got one of the major chairs there, and to my surprise ended up as head of the institution in 2000, which I did for just over 10 years, and it was a very exciting time.
Professor Whitty, does teaching still hold a keen interest for you?
Yeah, I mean, it goes right back actually to the period when I left school at 18, and I had about 9 months before I went to Cambridge, and I volunteered to teach immigrant children. This was in the 1960s, and it really turned me onto teaching, and particularly teaching disadvantaged kids who were marginalised from the mainstream society.
Now, teaching and education, you must have seen some changes through the years?
Yes, well, of course, people tell us that when I started, it was all very laissez-faire and it was all long-haired radical teachers. I did have long hair, I had left-wing views, but actually we were really good teachers and the kids really liked it. So the way it's painted these days, I think, is unfair. To be honest, there's not the same room for creativity that there was. And that, I think, has been good, if you like, in raising the floor. The general standards are better. But at the top end, I think we've lost something.
In Australia, we have the saying, the 3 R's, the reading, writing, the arithmetic, and that was the basis for many years. Do you think we've deviated much from that?
Well, I think certainly in England that is still very much the emphasis, although there are growing views that really that's produced a rather narrow group of people coming out of schools, and particularly the arts have been neglected. And so I think the pendulum will swing back, maybe not back to what it was like in the 60s, but certainly back from where it is now.
Now, we've got you here at the University of Newcastle. Tell us about your role here, what you will be doing.
Well, I came here because the University of Newcastle is an unusual university. It's one which seems to be able to be high on excellence and high on equity. It has great academic standards. It also is an inclusive university, taking lots of kids from disadvantaged groups, not only kids, mature students. So it appealed to me because a lot of people tell us that you can't have both in the same university. And when they said they were setting up a centre of excellence for equity in higher education, I thought that's for me. I want to learn from the experience of Newcastle, distill the learning from that, disseminate it so that more universities can get away from either being teaching universities for the masses or research universities for the few.
Professor Whitty, what's your hopes for the future with that new centre here at the University of Newcastle?
Well, I hope it will become the local, national and global leader in that field. That's certainly our aspiration. We are already getting a lot of interest in it. We are getting people wanting to come and work here. And I think that's a really good sign for the future.
Now, the public lecture tomorrow, what will you be talking to us about and sharing with us?
Well, it's called Getting into Uni, Who You Know, What You Know, or Knowing the Ropes. And it's basically about why there are so few kids from low socioeconomic status groups getting into university in both England and Australia, and particularly why there's a scandalous lack of low SES students at the Group of 8 universities. I mean, Group of 8, less than 10% low SES. At Newcastle, it's 25. It can be done, and the lecture will be about what's stopping it being done. You know, is it finance? Is it lack of attainment? Is it lack of aspiration and awareness of what's possible? Or is it more intangible things about family and community culture? So that's essentially what I'll be talking about.
Professor Geoff Whitty, thank you for joining us this morning.